Welcome to How Now, the podcast where we talk about how to live in the now. And here's your host, Kim Martin Raymond.
Peace and blessings, and welcome to another edition of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. I am your host, Kim Martin Raymond. I'm a minister, spiritual life coach, author, and founder of Redefining You LLC, where I help my clients to realign themselves, mind, body, and spirit. And welcome to season 2 of the How Now podcast. And this year we are focusing on health and wellness. And I've been talking a lot about my wellness journey. And for those of you who are new listeners to our show, make sure that you go to www.hownowpodcast.com and pick your favorite podcast platform. And you'll be able to check out our shows, our previous shows, our upcoming shows, and also make sure that you click on the How Now podcast YouTube channel. And there you'll be able to see my wellness journey. You'll be able to also see some of our shows in review. For those of you who are visual as opposed to listeners, you'll be able to tune into the show and watch it in the now. Again, that's www.hownowpodcast.com. So let's get into tonight's episode. We are going to be talking about yoga. Okay, and that's something, where we're talking about wellness journeys. We're talking about different ways in which people tone their bodies, in which they exercise, in which they stretch their muscles. And yoga is no stranger to that. But there are many different types of yoga. So we're going to talk about yoga one-on-one, not one-on-one, yoga 101. And is it all about flexibility? And to help me talk about that is my beautiful guest who is with us tonight. And as is customary with the How Now podcast, I'm going to have her to introduce herself at this time.
Hi, everyone. I am V, aka the LunarKissedYogi, and I am a 200-hour certified yoga instructor. And I am all about wellness and yoga. And my acronym that I live by is creativity rules everything around me. Cream.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Did y'all catch that? All right, make sure you write down. Tell them one more time. You said cream. Give them the acronym again.
Creativity rules everything around me.
Creativity rules everything around me, aka cream. Okay, get into it. I love that. I love that. Welcome to the show. I am so glad that you are here to help us to understand yoga and to understand, what it's about. Because I have to be honest, as a full-figured person who is now on the journey, who is now 50 pounds lighter, and anybody who is listening, I'm gonna keep on telling them that.
As you should.
Thank you. So the thing is, when I thought of yoga, I said, I looked at some of the poses. There were some things that I was able to do, but, I said, okay, I'm in the downward dog. I can't get my knee up to my arm because my stomach and my breasts are in the way. Real talk. Right. So I was like, I'm not flexible enough to be able to do yoga, and then I'm finding out that it's not just about the flexibility, it's about more than that. So before we talk about that, let's talk about how you got into yoga.
Okay, so I first got into yoga in 2015. My introduction to yoga was prenatal yoga. So my first ever yoga class was when I was 5 months pregnant.
Wow.
And it was actually included in my insurance. And so I was like, why not? Okay, I'll take this yoga class. And then I just kept going every week. I loved it. And of course, that is a modified yoga practice as well, because you're pregnant, right? But it was amazing. So that's how I first got into yoga. And then I took a break, right? Had my baby boy, and next thing I know, years had passed, but I always kept my yoga mat in the corner of my room. Right. Always. I still have that yoga mat to this day. I have a new one, but I still have that one too. And I would bring it out every now and then, but never consistently until 2 years ago, right? 2020, the pandemic hit. And early into the pandemic, around the summertime, there was a scholarship that I applied for to go to yoga school. And I was accepted. And I was so excited. I'm like, okay, here is my chance to really kind of bring this full circle, get into school, become certified, and really bring this wellness to our community. Because that's my goal, is to really bring yoga into the Black community, to be honest, because it's not as popular in our community as other communities. So then I took a year off of that too. I was like, okay, it was a self-paced program, a 200-hour self-paced program. But then I picked it back up last year. I was like, okay, in the fall, I made it my goal to be completed by the end of 2021. And I received my certification in December of last year. Awesome. And it just feels amazing. It's like a full circle moment to me. And I'm sorry, I think I kind of just went on and on, but
no. That's perfect. That's perfect, because that's what we want. We want to know how it happens. And I love your transparency in talking about it, because yes, sometimes we get excited about something and then kind of falls off for a little while, and then we go, okay, all right, I'm back. Exactly. Circumstances happen, life happens, and so sometimes we have to take that break and say, okay, and then decide whether this is something that we want to be consistent in. And so, I'm glad that you were able to, continue in that vein. And just like you said about the yoga mat being in the corner, how many of us have exercise bikes and treadmills and all kinds of things that wind up posted up in the corner, and
collecting dust.
We start putting things on it, clothes on it, it becomes everything but what it was supposed to be.
Exactly.
But I'm glad that you picked it up and that you had it. Now it's interesting. You said that you started with prenatal yoga, because so there you go. You had a stomach with a baby, and I had a stomach with just fat in it. So
well, now my stomach's just fat.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the thing. It's like, wow, I didn't even think about that. And you don't have as much flexibility being pregnant. They always say, don't put your hands above your head. Don't do this. Don't do that.
Exactly.
So I can only imagine what that was like. Being able to even have the difference between doing prenatal yoga and doing just traditional yoga. Okay, so the certification that you got is in what type of yoga?
It's in Vinyasa and Hatha. Those are two types of yoga flows. So for the Vinyasa, it's more of a fast-paced yoga. So you're really linking your movements with your breath. So it's in sync, and that tends to go at a faster pace. My preferred method is Hatha. That is how I teach my classes. The majority of my classes is the Hatha method and flow, and that's a slower pace where you're really focusing on your breath as you move. And a yoga type of yoga that uses that method and flow is chair yoga. So Hatha yoga is just, I feel like I could really sit into the pose instead of just really kind of moving through them. Now, Vinyasa is very great for if you're just really trying to wake up in the morning, get your body moving, your blood flowing, or, a noonday flow. Vinyasa really is great for that as well.
Okay, now is the vinyasa one, is it a beginner's type, or is it considered more of an advanced for more advanced people who are more familiar with the moves, or can you do both on a beginner's level?
You can do both on a beginner's level.
Okay.
You know, there are certain poses that are beginner friendly that you can do with vinyasa. So, but it's just more so the pace.
Right.
That's what really separates the flows, is the pace of how fast you're moving.
Right. Now you mentioned chair yoga.
Mhm.
So and that's something that, I'm like, wow, okay. Because I have spinal stenosis, so I have issues
Okay.
with having some sensitivity or issues, with tingling sensations going down my legs. And so sometimes, if I get up in the morning and I'm deciding whether I'm going to do strength training that particular day, or if I'm trying to do cardio that day, if my legs are not feeling as secure as they normally do, then I tend to want to do chair exercises, so that way I'm not putting any type of pressure or causing any undue pain in my legs. And so I'm very much piqued, and my interest is piqued by doing chair, any type of chair exercise that's going to keep me from having to cause any pressure on my legs. So talk to us about this chair yoga.
Okay, so chair yoga is a modified yoga experience, if you will, and it is in the Hatha flow. So most of the poses that you can do in traditional yoga can be modified to do in the chair, which is awesome. So chair yoga is great for, people with chronic conditions, limited mobility, as you stated, elderly,
right?
And just if we're in a day and age where we sit at the desk a lot. Yes. Are we taking the long flights, and we're just sitting down a lot? So chair yoga is really great for anyone, even if you don't have any of those limit mobility issues or chronic conditions, just to get your blood circulating at your desk. You can do a few asanas just to get that circulation going, right? On a flight right now, we could do like an asana. But the same way that the body moves in traditional yoga with the motion and the flows is what you do in the chair as well. And a main staple of that is pranayama, which is breathing techniques. Okay. So you could practice yoga just by doing a few breathing techniques. Okay. That's yoga.
Wow. And that's it. I think all of us think about the tradition. We think about downward dog. We think about the warrior pose. We think about the tree, or all those other poses, because those are things that we typically hear. And you never realize how much breath has to do with, you think of, because when I think of breath, I immediately think, meditation and breathing in and breathing out, and we hear about that when they talk about make sure that you woosah, that you calm down, so you have to breathe, make sure that you breathe. And so that's typically where you hear things like that. But yoga has a foundation in breath.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
It all ties in together.
Yes.
Because if you're doing a pose and you're not breathing through it, you're actually not even doing the pose. Because if you're just kind of worried about how you look in the pose, but you're actually not breathing and connecting with that movement, you're doing it incorrectly. So, the westernized version of yoga has gotten kind of vain in a sense. Gotcha. Where we have to really connect with ourselves. And yoga is really about the joining of your inner self and knowing your inner self all of that is connected to yoga. And I feel like there's such a misconception that yoga is all about the poses, and I'm not, when I try to encourage some people to, hey, come to a class, it's like, I'm not flexible. You don't have to be flexible.
Right.
That's the first thing that most people think, that you have to be flexible. I'm not all that flexible. It's certain poses that I cannot get fully into, right? But it's not about that. It's really not. And of course, there's challenging poses that you have to kind of work up to, right? With consistency, with anything, with consistency and actually breathing through it. Because when you breathe, if you've noticed, like in yoga, like you said, the inhales and the exhales, those are helping your body move into the pose and through the pose. So when you're exhaling, you can lengthen your spine. You can stretch a little deeper into that pose, so it's all linked together. It's such a beautiful practice.
And that's lovely, and that's something that I think is wonderful about, being certified or about learning more about it, because the more you understand the science or the concepts behind the things that you're doing, the more in tune you can become, and the easier it is for you to make the transition into that particular thing that you're doing. So now just knowing that it's about breathing, knowing that it's about, getting that oxygen into your body, and that's what helps to enhance that flexibility or enhance that ability to get into those poses. That's something that's good to know, and if you don't understand the concept behind it, just like you said, you're going to be stiff, you're going to be focusing on, the thing. Just like in strength training, they tell you that you have to focus on the form. It's not just a matter of doing the bicep curls. It's a matter of being deliberate about the moves that you're doing, and making sure that those things are done, that your form is what's key. And
you can't judge yourself. It's not about judging yourself. And, I feel like, we're human, right? So I don't know about you, but I've judged myself. Like, do I look right? But you have to take that away. But that goes back to being mindful and mindfulness. That's a practice. And it ties into meditation, and it ties into movement. It all ties in together. That's, like I said, that's the beautiful part of yoga. And it's so attractive to me, because if I don't start my day off with yoga, I can feel the difference. Because yoga helps me personally be more centered and connected, and I get to breathe, because throughout the day, we're taking these shallow breaths throughout the day. We're not really being mindful of breathing. That's why, sometimes like, wait, hold on, take a breath, take a deep breath. Okay, you're stressed, take a breath. It's really about breathing. But back to starting my day off with yoga, it makes a difference. I'm calmer, less stress, anxiety pretty much non-existent. And yoga really helps with that. With people who struggle with anxiety, when I tell you there's so many different types of yoga, I'm also, when I got my certification in, of course, the Hatha and Vinyasa flows, I also received an additional certification for trauma-informed yoga.
Oh, wow.
It's a different type of flow and practice.
All right, talk to me a little bit about that. Now I'm intrigued. I'm today years old hearing about this, So yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. So it's trauma It's called what again?
Trauma-informed yoga.
Trauma-informed yoga.
Yes,
Okay.
so great for PTSD, people who struggle with that, and of course, traumatic events, traumatic history, present trauma. So it's a very delicate flow. And as instructors, we have to be mindful of the words we use, certain poses. It's a very delicate yoga flow, but it's so beneficial to people who struggle with, past traumatic events.
Right. That is awesome. Just like you said, it's delicate. It's amazing how many different forms they are. And I can definitely understand for those who may have PTSD or, like you said, trauma, that certain poses can cause triggers. And so I'm sure that it's gotten, that you have to be careful, like you said, and be mindful of that. So it's interesting because, I guess you have to kind of know what types of yoga are out there, because, it's not just the traditional yoga that you see that, because I wouldn't even know to ask to say, oh, well, what kind of yoga? I just assumed there was one kind of yoga, and for me, all of them contain downward dog. There's got to be a downward dog, or there's got to be a warrior pose, because those are the only things I hear about all the time. So,
very popular poses.
Yes, and so it's just amazing how limited we are in our knowledge of the types of yoga. So I hope that our listeners are listening to that too, because anytime that we're seeking to do something or to familiarize ourselves with something that's new to us, it's always worth taking that little bit of a deeper dive to see what it is that's going to be best for us before we immediately say, oh, well, I can't do yoga because I'm not flexible. Just like you said, you don't have to be, just as long as you're able to breathe, just as long as you're able to realize that they have different types of yoga, and that there are different types of movements and things like that. I think about people who may be, obese, and they're thinking, okay, well, I would like to do this. We have seen some people who are obese who have a great amount of flexibility and are able to do yoga, and we're seeing more classes and seeing those things on different types of social media where people are actually doing that.
Exactly, because yoga is for everybody. Okay. Everybody type.
Yes. For everybody and every body. Yes.
That part,
That is awesome. I mean, and that's what we want to do. The takeaway is always going to be that knowledge is power. Until we understand and know what it is that's available to us, we can't take advantage of it. Right. So that's why I'm happy for platforms like these, where we can bring these things to light, to let people know that there are different types of yoga, that it can be done in modification, just like exercises are done in modification.
Yes.
So, I mean, and like I said, with the trauma induced, I would have never heard of it before a day in my life.
Yes.
So it's great to know that there are different types of yoga, and that there are different veins in which they operate, so that way they're getting the maximum use out of it.
Exactly.
So as far as yoga is concerned, how often should yoga be done? Should it be done? I know, like when you think about strength training, they tell you, make sure you skip a day, have a day of rest, do something like that, so that way you're not overextending your muscles or things like that. When it comes to yoga, is that something that you can do daily?
Yes.
No.
Yes. And once again, yoga is not just the third limb, right? There's 8 limbs. I could probably go into about 4 tonight, but asanas is just the third limb, and that's the physical practice. So you can do yoga every day and not literally do the poses. If you do breathing techniques, pranayama, That's yoga. You can do that today, and then tomorrow you do the physical practice of yoga.
Right.
So it's very beneficial to do yoga at least a few times a week. You know, if you can't get into it daily, at least a few times a week, it will really make a difference in just your overall being.
Yeah. And just like you said, it's not just about the physical, it's about the breath. And we know that when we breathe in and we take in that oxygen and we relax, like you said, it releases that stress. It has a calming effect. Because as you said, we are shallow breathers. We do not take in deep breaths, you know, and it's not until somebody says, you know, take a deep breath that you go, that you realize that, oh my gosh, that's a deep breath. And no, I don't breathe like that on a regular basis. We just think that it's only done when somebody asks us to do it, but it's something that we should be doing, you know, normally. And that's what we don't do. We don't realize that there are things that we do, and it's not until somebody says relax your arms or you know, relax your face,
right, unclench your jaw.
Yes. And it's not until you say it that somebody's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that my jaw was clenched.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And see, that's the thing. And so like another limb of yoga, the first is the yamas. And that's more so with ethical standards. Okay. So that's the first limb of yoga. How ethical are you? You know, what's your integrity like?
Wow.
In your life? You know, how are you conducting yourself? How's your behavior? So that's the first limb of yoga. So you haven't even got to the poses and the physical practice yet of yoga. The first limb is yamas, your ethics. You know, and then you move into the second limb, which is your niyamas. And that's more so dealing with your spiritual and your self-discipline. You know, like, did you really need 10 cookies? You know, you practicing your yoga, you know, it's just little things where you can actively practice yoga every single day. And that's just the first two limbs. Right. So you have your yamas, your niyamas, then you have the asanas, which is the physical practice. And the fourth, like I said, I just tapped into 4. The fourth one is the pranayama, which is the breathing. And actually breathing, you know, and there's techniques to it. You know, and I'm not all the way into my breathing like I should, as far as just breathing by my, you know, on its own. Right. Like I do it in my movements, but just sitting and actually alternating nostrils, because that's a technique. Yes. You know, breathing. Right. Alternate nostrils. Yes. That's something that I could definitely get more into. You know, but there's so much to yoga. Those are just the first 4. Right. Right. You see, and that's something that's amazing right there, because there seems to be a preparation. We go right to the movement and not think about the things that we need to do in preparation for that. Yes. Yes. So I love that you say that, because I would have never known that there was, you know, that those steps were necessary before you even get into the movements. Is your mind right? Exactly. Do you have the discipline that's required for you to do that? We jump right into what we see and not into what goes on behind it. And that's, I'm sure, what makes it effective. And I'm sure that's what makes you an effective teacher, because I'm sure before you even go into the poses that you have a conversation with them regarding, you know, the steps. So kind of talk me a little bit through, like, if I was coming into your class for the first time and I was saying, you know, and I'm saying, okay, I'm new to this, I don't know anything about this, what would that look like for a beginner like myself? Well, I made a series. So I've taught chair yoga. I did, I subbed for that class, actually. I subbed for another teacher. I just finished an 8-week series that I did virtually. And the theme was yoga to splits.
Okay.
So it was a gradual process to get to a split. So each class gradually increased with poses and different techniques that would warm up your hamstrings, loosen those up, open up your hips, because that's what gets you into that pose.
Right.
And I had a range of students from, like 20s to late 50s. And so I did a lot of modifications, but I'll tell you what to expect from a class, but I did modifications, right? There's a pose called Pigeon Pose. It's a hip opener. And where you can get into the pose from downward facing dog. So that position, right?
Right.
So to get into Pigeon Pose, you're going to swing that right leg in between your hands.
Yes.
And you're going to kneel that left leg down, stretching it outwards. And so that right leg is bent with the knee parallel to the ground. And so for students who had knee issues and who couldn't really get into that pose in the full on position, there's modified pigeon, right? So it's like, okay, if you bend that left leg at a 90-degree angle, that takes that pressure off the knee. And that was accommodating. So what you could expect in my class is modifications for poses that you find challenging or that are a bit uncomfortable, as well as motivation, energy, bomb music, and it's a lit class. So I received so much like positive feedback from the 8 weeks. On an average, I had about 15 students coming every week. And they just really enjoyed the class. So I set the intentions at the beginning of class. I like to get into a Zen mode. Let's release whatever happened before class. We're going to release that. So we're going to start off usually in an easy pose. And that's the name of the pose, easy pose. So we're going to start it off in an easy pose, nice chill music, set an intention for class.
Right.
Like, sometimes my intentions are, I just want to be present with myself and connect with myself. My intention for the night. And that intention carries you throughout the class. So you can come back to that. Like, oh, okay, hold on. Nope. I'm judging myself right now. Nope. Remember my intention. It's just to be present in this moment. So setting intentions, clearing the space is very important. And that's something that I do in my class, offer modifications, and just have fun. You gotta have fun. I like having fun. So I bring that type of energy to my classes, and everyone really kind of enjoys that,
That's awesome. That's awesome because it's about empowerment also. And then, like you said, with making the modifications, no one feels as though they're being alienated. No one feels as though they're being singled out for not being able to do it. And it's just like you said, it lightens the atmosphere, the environment there, and it lets people know that, okay, this is something I may not be able to do this, but I can do that.
Yes.
And I'm empowered to do that, and we're having fun. So it's like you said, it's all about setting those intentions. And once you set those intentions, then things tend to run much more smoothly because you're saying, hey, this is what I want to do. My intention is to go through this class. My intention is to be able to do something new with my body that I wasn't able to do before.
See, those are the teachers, okay? You know.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And so you said the modifications, being able to go into chair, to be able to realize that it goes beyond just flexibility.
Exactly.
Because you're also flexing your mind muscles. You're flexing everything. It's more to, I just did not realize when you talk about those four limbs and that you're more than that. That right there is just mind blowing to me because I had no idea. I thought you just go into the class, you sit on the floor and you just like a pose and that's it. And I'm sure that there are others out there who are thinking the same thing, like, oh, it's not, there's more to it than that, you know? And so it's definitely something worth researching. It's something worth, you know, going in and finding out what other types of yoga there are, so that if it's something that you want to be part of your wellness journey, that you can begin to, you know, look into that. We've started the conversation. We you know, piqued some people's interest into the different types of yoga that are available, and knowing that it's something that they can do.
Definitely.
So I am so excited about what you have shared this evening. I'm so excited about, you know, the fact that, you know, to know that that's something I can definitely look into. That's something I would love to incorporate into my own personal wellness journey. And so, you know, I definitely want to get involved in that. And how long are the classes typically?
Well, 30 minutes to an hour.
Okay.
30 minutes to an hour is typical.
Oh, okay. And that's good to know too, because, you know, sometimes there are some of us who are like, okay, look, I don't have but like 20, 30 minutes, you know, because I got to go to work. You know, I get up early in the morning and no, it's not going to be an hour.
Right.
That will require me to get up an hour earlier. And I'm already like, okay, I already got one eye open trying to do exercise in the first place. So yeah, that 30 minutes looking real good to me. But that's good to know too, that there's a, you know, that you can get in a good session and be able to stretch your body and to be able to you know, create that sense of zen, like you said.
Oh yes.
To start your day and know that, you know, it's not just that you're elongating your muscles and you're taking care of your body, you're taking care of your mindset as well.
Exactly.
So when you're going out, you know, you're ready to start your day because you've taken those deep breaths and you've, you know,
centered yourself.
Your intentions.
Right. It's about connection. Connecting with our inner self.
Grounding ourselves. Absolutely. I love it. I love it. Okay. So as we start looking to wrap things up, because I know that you know, we're getting close to you know, that time where people are gonna be like, okay, now we want them to stay engaged, we want them to stay with us. So first we'll ask how people can get in contact with you, because if they're interested in taking a yoga class, or they're interested in taking your chair yoga class, let us know how they can get in contact with you.
Okay, so my website is peaceloveandsage.com. And that's,
do you spell out? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, it's all how it sounds, is all together. peaceloveandsage.com. That's also on Facebook, IG, and you can book your private yoga sessions there, or also private group yoga sessions as well. My yogi page is the THE Lunar LUNAR Kissed KISSED Yogi YOGI on IG, which is Instagram. And that's where you can follow my page to see helpful yoga tips, yoga videos, my karma offering classes, which are free classes that I offer as well at times. The 8-week part series that I said, that was a karma offering. So that's where that information will be. And YouTube.
And
So I will be
YouTube.
uploading
Okay.
YouTube videos at the
Okay.
LunarKissedYogi as well.
Okay, so the LunarKissedYogi is YouTube and IG.
Yes.
Okay, and then your website is www.peaceloveandsage.com. I love it.
Thank you.
I love it. So yes, and the classes are offered. Do you do them in person and virtually?
Yes.
Oh, they okay, perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. So they have you have no excuse about being able to reach out and ask questions and connect with Miss V, so that way you can find out more about yoga, and knowing that it is not just about flexibility, it's about breath work. It's also about intentions. It's also about making sure that you're doing things physically, mentally, spiritually, that you're setting yourself up for success, and that can happen through yoga as well. So again, I thank you for being here with us. Now, one thing that I ask all of my guests before we go is how they are living in the now. What is something that you're doing to navigate in this space, that you're doing to create, to cope? And for me, cope is creating our peaceful existence. So that's
I love that.
Yes. So how are you coping in this space that we're still in with pandemic and things going on? How do you navigate in this space?
Okay. There's this quote that I love, and it helps me be mindful. And that's a huge word for me, mindfulness, right? And it says, the only way to truly be happy is to live in the present moment. If you are living in the past and the future, you're not happy, right? So that's a mindful moment of really living in the present. And each day I pull oracle cards. I do that. Tonight is perfect. It's a new moon tonight. So I don't know if you looked out your window, but the new moon is shining so bright. And that is very representative of this energy that we're moving into for the next moon cycle, and just really tapping into our greatness and owning it. But back to the question, each night I reflect and check in with myself by journaling. And that helps me, to check in with myself. I love to live presently.
I love that. That's it. The show is called How Now. So, we're talking about living in the now, living in the present. So, I'm all about that vibe. Yes. It's all about doing that. And I love that you say journaling. That's something that is wonderful. It's a wonderful way for us to connect. It's a wonderful way for us to record the things that are happening to us, for us to be in a state of gratefulness as well.
Right.
To be able to say, okay, this is what happened today. This is how I was feeling, and to be able to tap back into that as well. So,
and even self-study.
Oh yes. You went through, and you are living proof. You went through, you did your certification. That was self-study. You took your time and did it at the pace that was right for you. So that way it can be done correctly. Sometimes things are not meant to be done in haste. And I think that was the best thing they could have come up with, self-study, because everybody doesn't learn at the same pace. Sometimes life happens and you have to take a break. And if they just say, oh, well, you have to do it in this allotted time, and you don't, then you just miss out. I think it's a wonderful plan that people have set in place to say, okay, this is self-paced. This is something that you can do. So that way you can do it right.
Yes.
So again, I thank you so much for being here, for shedding some light on yoga, giving us some takeaways that we can go and dig a little deeper into. They have a way of getting in contact with you. And we'll make sure that
Yes,
we put
please
that.
do.
Yes, we'll make sure we put that in the description for the show when it airs, so you'll be able to get in contact with Miss V. And we look forward, honey, to having you come back. As you're learning more, as you're growing and doing more, we'd love to always have our guests come back and talk about what's happening in there now, what's happening and what's new and what's going on in your life. And I wish you much success in all that you continue to do and how you're raising awareness, like you said, in our community about things that are typically not embraced, And the only way that we know is if we learn and if people bring those things to the forefront of our minds so that we can be better and do better. Okay, so again, thank you so much for being here with us. And that will do it for this edition of the How Now podcast. And until we see you the next time, I say peace.